Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. First, let's talk about Kharkiv-Belgorod direction. The Russians continue sending more and more armored vehicles and tanks to the line of combat contact, continue concentrating the forces along the border. Yet, the Russians haven't introduced significant number of armored forces in the battle. Currently, the Russians are using mainly infantry, artillery and drones, which confirms that the Russians continue preparation before something bigger than we can see right now. For now, the Russians are preparing for the next, let's say, stage of Kharkiv offensive. First thing, they need to, resolve the issues with Liptsy and Volchansk itself. When talking about Liptsy, we still haven't received any updates, reporting or giving us any information whether the Russians managed to improve their positions further or not. When talking about Volchansk, we have lots of very interesting details, very interesting updates, so let's discuss them. So the Russians are saying that they continue offensive operation. The Russians are saying that they continue attacking Ukraine positions in the citadel, in the southern part of the north of Volchansk and in the eastern part of north of Volchansk. The Ukrainians from their side are saying that they conducted a series of counterattacks, successful counterattacks, and as a result of those counterattacks, the Ukrainians managed to restore their positions. Now let's talk in details to understand what exactly happened in Volchansk during the previous 24-48 hours. When talking about the southern part of the north of Volchansk, the Russian soldiers, the Russian forces during the previous 9 days tried to conduct a few attacks in this direction, but most of those attacks were repelled by the storm assault troopers of the armed forces of Ukraine. We have a video how the Russian infantry were trying to clear another building, but they got under machine gun fire of the soldier of Ukrainian army, and after the few soldiers of Russian army were wounded, they decided to fall back. So that those attacks were repelled by the Ukrainians. The Russian sources are saying that they continue pummeling and destroying the Ukrainian positions inside of the citadel, but the Russians are saying that they are using endless, numbers of FAPs, of those flamethrower strikes in this area, but yet they haven't managed to capture the citadel because the Russians are saying the Ukrainians concentrated significant number of snipers in this area, and due to the snipers and due to the fact that the Ukrainians control the high-rise building area, the Russians can't move further, and the Russians suffer very big losses. Very interesting details are coming from the eastern and the northeastern part of Volchansk. This territory is covered with the fog of war. For example, today the official Telegram channel of a group of forces north stated that there are very heavy clashes in the eastern Volchansk, that the Ukrainians, that the Russians managed to improve their positions, that the Russians captured around up to 390 meters, so they managed to improve their positions in direction of Ukrainian, territory for another 390 meters. The Ukrainians conducted a series of counterattacks of 82nd Air Brigade, but most of those attacks were repelled by the Russians, and the Ukrainians lost significant number of forces, up to 2 platoons. So this is the official statement of the group of forces north. The clashes were taking place somewhere here. But when talking about the Ukrainian sources, we have a few updates. This is, the first update, and according to this update, as you can see, the Ukrainians managed to restore positions in Volchansk, and as a result of clashes, the Ukrainians returned positions in the northeastern part, so just a small block as a result of counteroffensive. So to summarize everything, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians were attacking, this way, and as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians managed to restore their positions in this area. Also, we have the video. This is the video that was published also by the Ukrainian side. This is the consequences of another day, of another hours of clashes in this direction. After very heavy and bloody battles, the Russian soldiers decided to surrender. So if summarize everything, the Russians are saying that they managed to improve their positions for around 400 meters, but according to pro-Ukrainian and Western sources, the Ukrainians, as a result of offensive operation, in the eastern and northeastern of Volchansk, managed to restore positions over these blocks. For now, there are not so many updates, not so many information to change the map, but anyway, this is a very interesting piece of news, and most likely will color this territory as a gray zone. Furthermore, we have additional updates from different mappers who also confirms that the Ukrainians still control the central part without any any progress, without any advances to any of the direction. And the main problem also that was stated by the Russians they faced during the battle for Vovchansk is that Ukrainians concentrated a significant number of engineering machines along the Vovcha River. They are building the bridges, they built hundreds of bridges along the river, and the Ukrainians don't have any problems to redeploy forces from the southern part to the northern part. The Russians continue publishing significant number of videos of how they're hunting and destroying the bridges, but for now the Russians still haven't managed to ruin the Ukrainian logistic. Probably as soon as the Russians are able to ruin Ukrainian logistic, as soon as the Russians are able to bypass the citadel, the entire northern Vovchansk will fall, but for now there are still very heavy clashes, and the Ukrainians still have possibilities to, let's say, hold the territory. Now let's move further to the south. We have additional updates from Avdiivka direction. They're very interesting. According to information we have, the Russians have almost finished the semi-encirclement of the village by the name of Sokol. Different mappers confirms additional Russian progress to the north of Sokol and to the southeast of Sokol. So if we summarize everything according to different mappers, the progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation on the northern direction is something like this. So the Russians are about to block the stronghold from the north and the northeast, and according to different mappers, the Russians also established complete control over these tree lines, and the Russians got as close as possible to the village itself. If you remember, yesterday we talked that as a result of offensive the Russians entered the central part, but then they abandoned their positions, and today the Russians are about to finish the battle for the village once and for all. Very interesting updates are coming from Paraskoviivka. The Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were FPV droning the Russian forces in this part of Krasnogorovka, which confirms Russian progress in the area. As you can see, the territory is colored as a gray zone because during the previous weeks, different mappers have already updated this part of Krasnogorovka, the territory under Russian control. But just today, on the 4th of June, we received the final confirmation that at least the Russians entered this line. So for now, we will keep the map as is. We're waiting for additional updates and additional geolocations. The most important updates are coming tonight from Paraskoviivka. The Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the village. They forced the Ukrainians to fall back completely. If you remember, a few days ago we were talking that the forces of 79th Air Assault Brigade stated that probably 2 days they would be able to hold Paraskoviivka more, but later they would be forced to fall back. And after 2 days passed, the Ukrainians abandoned their positions completely. On this video we can see the Russian turtle tank moving from the east to the west of Paraskoviivka, getting to the, let's say, river, to small Botsa barrier. So the Russians were trying to create something like a bridge, small bridge by armored vehicle. They, let's say, put their tank to the hole, and that later the Russian forces probably could use for a deployment of forces from one side of the Botsa barrier to another. So we have adjusted the map, we have enough of evidence, and now we can tell for sure that the battle for Konstantinovka, official battle for Konstantinovka, has started. Now the Russians are able to move further to the, let's say, residential area in the northern Konstantinovka, let's say something like this, and now the Russians of course will try to attack this village Konstantinovka from the southeast as well. During the previous 24 hours, the Russian sources published another video how they managed to discover and to destroy the Ukrainian mortar system in the eastern part of Konstantinovka as a result of counter-artillery duels. So very interesting. Now let's move to another important area, to Ugledar. According to information we have, the Russian sources reported that the battle for Ugledar started again. We don't have enough of updates, geolocations or videos confirming this, but very reliable Russian sources are saying that the battle has started, that the Russians began artillery preparation yesterday. After a day of very heavy explosions and fire, the Russians started the ground operation. Currently it's very difficult to understand where exactly the Russians are attacking, whether the Russians are attacking from Nikolsk to the north or from Vladimirovka to Ugledar itself. very difficult to understand. We don't have enough of updates, enough of information to make these conclusions. So today we're expecting for some additional updates from the territory, which will give us some let's say understanding where exactly the Russians are attacking. Either the Russians are moving to Gledar itself, or they're trying to bypass this let's say stronghold from the west by attacking further from Solotka Stepnoye, Vladimirovka to these fields in direction of Vadiana. Anyway, the battle has started, and today we're going to receive additional updates. Very important political updates, events were received during the previous night. The United States of America doesn't allow the Ukrainians to use their attackers missiles to attack the territory of Russian Federation, which is very important. NATO countries and the United States of America are not going to send instructors on the territory of Ukraine. On the other hand, we see that according to information we have, the French military experts, French military instructors are already on the territory of Ukraine, and their main purpose is to maintain the very difficult Western Western equipment. Furthermore, we got report that Italy is going to send the second system, air defense system SAM-T, to Ukraine. This is the second, let's say, air defense system of the type. Furthermore, we have reports that in Kiev there was a very heavy explosion and fire somewhere in the vicinity of the warehouses. Maybe the Russians managed to, let's say, conduct successful sabotage operation, and as a result of that attack, some maybe warehouse or drones or missiles was destroyed. And also important thing that this summer and the upcoming winter is going to be the most difficult for Ukraine, because the Ukrainians need to expect that every single day there's going to be a blackout, a complete turn off of the electricity and energy support. And when talking about summer, most likely the people would be able to survive, but when talking about winter, this can lead to significant problems. And also the Ukrainian sources published the video of the probably losses among Max Pro armored vehicles, that the hundreds of let's say armored vehicles of the type were sent to Ukraine by the United States of America. And this is the warehouse, this is the stock parking place of losses among this type of weapon collected since the beginning of the special military operation. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.